Hello and welcome to Story X Story, the podcast by Maya Mada that dives deep into stories across pop culture plus gives you advice on creating your own. It's episode 223 and I'm your co-host Nigel. And that's usually where Tazziii comes in. But this is one of those rare episodes where we don't have Tazziii. And in the co-host spot, we've had a mad schedule thing with Tazziii and potential guests as well. So it's just me hosting. But as always, we're bringing you interesting discussions with diverse voices. And to help us out today, as we delve into the DCU, I think that's the official title, is comic creator and founder, producer at Altered Gene, Des Gayle. Des, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Cool. Hello. It's just us two. We are going to do the Kobe and Shaq thing, and we're gonna take over. We're gonna take over the game. The other players aren't here. It's just us two-man game, and we're gonna outscore the opponent or whatever basketball analogy I'm reaching for. But yeah, we're gonna have a good chat about the new Superman film. Des has been on the show before when we talked about Scott Pilgrim, the animated series on Netflix. So I had a good chat there. Go check out that episode. And yeah, you can subscribe to Story X Story wherever you get your podcast from, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're also putting episodes on YouTube as well. You can send us your feedback and questions in several ways. You can send us a voice message on our Spotify for Podcasters page. You can email us, studio77@mayamada.com, or throw your thoughts at us on social media. We are at Mayamada on Twitter, at Mayamada TV on Instagram and TikTok, and at mayamada.com on Blue Sky, or at Life of a W Gamer on Instagram and TikTok, and Tazziii on everything else. You can also go to mayamada.com. A new website is still in progress, but you can still check out the brand, check out what we do, see our latest comic as well. And there's links to things like the campaign, the Studio 77 Discord, while you wait for something new later in the year. Before we get to today's story discussions, let's update you with the latest from the Maya Mada universe. We have a new comic. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It features Tazziii in the Maya Mada universe and its origins against all odds. So we launched it this year. Very happy with how it's all turned out and the process for it. So yeah, definitely give it a read, give it a watch. It's not an anime yet. At some point, I'm sure everything will be. But yeah, so check out the book. It's about pursuing your creative career goals in the face of resistance. So hopefully something that resonates with pretty much anyone, whatever stage of the creative career path you're at. I think I got it. The key stages covered. And we'll be bringing it to different conventions. We've got a couple to be announced, so you can see it in person and even get it signed. We've been doing some of that at DojanCon recently. We've got the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign, which is underway, and it's a campaign promoting inclusion and diversity in the video games industry. So each year we do a new snapshot of 40 players and makers to showcase representation where it does exist as a way to inspire more of it for future generations of diverse talent. We also do a bunch of events. So our next event is actually going to be Comic-Con, which is in October. So we've been showcasing the campaign there with a booth for a couple of years now. It's been really helpful for just reach, getting the word out. So we're going to be doing that again, showcasing photos, having some games, some activities we've got planned. We'll be on stage Friday and Saturday. And then doing a workshop on Sunday. I think that's the order. I'll double check that and more firm announcements. But yeah, we're going to be at Comic-Con in October. So that's the next event. And that actually wasn't in the plan to be the next event because we've unfortunately had to cancel the Games Industry Explained Roundtable event, which was supposed to be in September. Just an unfortunate casualty of lack of sponsorship, meaning we weren't able to, it just wasn't feasible to make it happen in the time that we had. So it's one of those realities of doing a campaign and funding it and with a grassroots sort of ethos in that sense. So yeah, it's a shame, but we hope that in 2026 we'll be able to bring that back. We had a good time at different places. King, we've been at Payload Studios in the past, but just wasn't able to make it happen this time around. However, at Comic-Con, we will be in the career stage having a roundtable discussion about video games as a career. So we're going to do what we can at Comic-Con and then bring back the full event next time around. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We've got more announcements as well. Some exciting announcements for our Game Jam event, which will be coming very soon. We're also on Twitch. You can find us there, and YouTube as well. We stream on both for our Studio 77 platform, where we host different shows with creative professionals across like games, comics, cosplay. We also play video games for your amusement, even when it's not our amusement, like the last one, Michael Works. That was a trip. But yeah, each month we do different shows. We do the Studio 77 report, me and Tazziii, rounding up the latest My Matter news, talking video game news stories, casual conversations with comic creators, and games night as well. So make sure you're following us on Twitch, on YouTube as well. You can see when we go live with those. And if you are a young aspiring creative professional, or you know of one, then check out the Maya Matter Showrunners Work Experience Program. So we are creating opportunities for young people aged 16 and up to work with our team across comic production, events, and content creation as well. So we've had a lot of input from a lot of really, just eager and talented young people across all those things like comics, events, content as well. So showrunners at mayamatter.com. If you are interested, get in touch and you can find out more. So now you're all caught up with the Maya Matter universe. Let's talk about some of the stories that we've been enjoying this week. And I'm going to introduce this segment. So yeah, this is where we do a spoiler-free discussion about what stories people have been reading, watching, playing. And as usual, we start with our guest. So Des, what have you been enjoying story-wise?
Yeah, I've been quite lucky lately, actually. I've had a good streak of content. So on Amazon Prime, I've been watching a TV show called Bosch. I think, actually, this is season 3. Technically, it's Bosch Legacy. I don't know why, but maybe some licensing reasons. But yeah, it's the last of a 3-season run. It's about a detective, kind of like, renegade style, does stuff his own way, but always has his heart in the right place.
Yeah. I've never even heard of this.
Oh, you're missing it. Well, you are missing out. Like like Bosch, the original series, and then season 1 of this legacy version are pretty good, pretty solid. This season 3, like my wife and I, we finished it on the weekend, and it just stinks of, like, they must have known. It must have been halfway through 2 when they were like, okay, cool, you're going to get a 3rd season, but then right at the start of the 3rd season, they must have known that this was going to be the last one, because the storylines are a little bit too clean and tidy, and you're just like, oh, okay. And there's a pseudo spoiler at the end that I won't reveal, but in general, yeah, it's really nice, detective show, nice and gritty and down to earth, which I thought was awesome. Video games, what am I up to? I have been playing Shinobi, The Art of Vengeance on my Switch 2. Nice. Just a demo, not the full game, because my wife won't let me spend all this money on video games. But it is very polished and very awesome. It's a 2D kind of like illustrated style, like Akami, if you remember that art style in that game. And it's awesome. Like, I mean, it's hard. Like, I don't enjoy that, but the animation is beautiful, and it takes some inspiration from, all of our favorite anime shows. It's really well done as well. I'm really enjoying it. I am tempted to buy the full version. Or no, I'm not tempted to buy it. It's going to be on my Christmas list, and Santa will get it for me.
There you go.
I like the optimism. Yeah. And then lastly, comic books. Yeah. What am I up to? So, I mean, rather topically, I am going through the new Superman. What's it called? The Dawn of DC. I think they rebooted it sort of like in the autumn last year. The one written by, what's his name? Joshua Williamson, and I think the art's Jamel Campbell, and a lady, I think Ariana Mayer, does the letters. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Art style is really cool, which is what really draws me into comics. And the storylines are okay. And I'll explain why in a minute, but like, it's been a long time since I've read like the standard like 32-page floppy. So yeah, they are they're a bit tighter than I remember. And the reason why I'm kind of feeling that is because I'm also reading the latest like Nightwing run, but I'm reading that in hardback volumes. So, I think there's 4 or 5 issues per volume, which is I don't know, I guess it's a pace that I prefer.
Yeah.
But yeah, who's doing that? Tom Taylor's writing it, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I've never heard this guy before, but Bruno Redondo is doing the art, and it's just top tier. Like I every page is just absolutely gorgeous. And like I said, the story's cool, and yeah, it's all about Mr. Dick Grayson. And I'm trying to think, this isn't a spoiler. Basically, he's rich now, and Bruce isn't, and it's all the fun shenanigans that go on with that. Yeah, definitely recommend Nightwing. Yeah, it's a good read.
Yeah, I think I do like DC comics. I've had issues with the films and the comic adaptations, especially Batman v Superman, because you had a comic right there, just do that, and they didn't. Anyway,
don't even get me started with that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that sounds good. So I've not been reading many comics recently. I need to sort that out. I've got a Turtles comic, The Last Ronin, that I need to get to. But
that's a good one. Yeah, the new one or the old one?
New one.
Okay. I've read that one. Yeah, okay.
So I'm sure I'll come back to that on some episode as well. But I've been watching a lot. It's been a busy time over the summer of workshops and stuff. So I've just been like dipping into things I'm already sort of watching and just continuing. Actually, I've got one new thing that I have started, so I lied. But did want to give a mention to Better Call Saul, which I did mention on the last deep dive episode we did, but it's just so good. I just have to mention it again. This show is so good. So this is a spin-off prequel to Breaking Bad. Arguably one of the greatest TV shows around. My personal favorite is The Wire, but I think that's the best. But anyway, it's not a competition. They're all great. But yeah, so Better Call Saul follows Saul Goodman before he became Saul Goodman, and it's interesting because again, quality is really good. Like character motivations, character arcs are fantastic. The way the stories are structured is so captivating, and then partway through, so I'm on season 2 now, it just hit me that this is a tragedy because we know where the character ends. So it's one of those things where, and it's a testament to how well they've written it, how well they've sort of shot and directed it. Even though you know where it ends, it's still suspenseful. It's still, because you don't know all the characters along the way, how they end up. So there's still like engagement from that perspective.
Yeah.
It also surprised me. Have you seen it? By the way, I should have asked that.
Yeah, I've not finished it though. But it's a masterful skill.
Yeah. And the other thing that struck me, and I was surprised that this is a Netflix show, because as I was watching it, I was like, this must be a pre-Netflix show, because it feels super slow, and I mean that in a good way. Like shots hang, the dialogue goes back and forth for what for me feels like a throwback to pre-streaming, where at least in my mind things felt quicker. I don't know if you felt that.
The episodes are 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And yeah, things are stretched out again, all in a good way. It just feels like they're making it and not afraid that time's going to get cut. They just got time to tell the story. It's very good. And just watching Bob Odenkirk he's great. Mike is great. I just love watching him do so much with so little in terms of his expressions and micro expressions and everything.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And then the actress that plays Kim Wexler is fantastic. She's a fantastic character. She is, at least from what I've seen so far, she's too good for Saul. She's too good to him, and I don't know what he's done to deserve it, but she's fantastic. So yeah, watching Better Call Saul, probably come back to that because it's just so good and worth mentioning.
Sorry, just quickly, talking about Bob. Have you seen his film Nobody?
I have. Well, I've seen the first one.
Yeah, that surprised me. I'm really glad. Yeah, because I remember I saw a trailer for that. I'm like, what? Because when you think about the casting, you just like, that's
that
weird.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah,
but it really works. Yeah.
Yeah, he makes that work. But I haven't seen the second one. But the first one I really appreciated, and a bunch of animation. So continuing Bob's Burgers, but nothing much to say there. But Solid. That's a solid show. I didn't realize because I watched the first maybe 2 or 3 seasons, then a massive gap, didn't come back to it. Not because I didn't like it, I liked it, but just lost track of it. And then I've since been, I was going to say binging. I don't really binge, but for me, binging because I'm on, I think season 7 or something around there. And it's just quality. You can see it getting better. Just quality show.
I've never watched it. Like, what is it?
So yeah, I should say. So it's a show. It's essentially about a guy named Bob and his family who own a restaurant, self-titled restaurant. So it's him, his wife Linda, and 3 kids: Jean, Tina, and Louise. Why am I forgetting names? Louise is just fantastic. My animation mentor character. Love her attitude. But it's one of those shows. Did you ever watch King of the Hill, which actually they brought back?
No, I this was I think this was right at the end of like MTV, right? Like
King of the Hill was, yeah.
Because I a lot of my friends were into Beavis and Butthead, and I wasn't.
Okay,
and then
there you go.
when this started coming out, I just thought the animation looked similar, and I was like,
yeah, like, yeah. So the reason I bring that up is just like mundane. But King of the Hill is like, I underrated it at the time. I liked it, but I didn't realize how good it was. And Bob Swag is a bit similar. Like their life is just nothing special. They're just nothing special. But it's about their relationship and seeing it now over multiple seasons, how they've expanded. So things don't take place just in the restaurant. They've expanded to the like local community, to other environments. But it's just funny. It's just funny. They've managed to work it so there's like lessons in there as well, as cartoons often do. But yeah, just enjoying that. Continuing Vinland Saga, fantastic anime. It's one of those animes that I would recommend to anyone, even if they're not into anime. Like, some anime is great, but I still wouldn't recommend it to other anime. This is just fantastic. So it takes place in the Viking era. I don't want to say too much because I went into it blind, and I thought from episode 1 I thought it was going to go one way, and it just went a completely different way that I wasn't expecting, and that was great. So just get into that. What I will say is that it's such a great story or theme around trauma and letting go, or not, as the case may be, of trauma, and I'll leave it at that. But fantastic, very mature, and I want to say a lot more, but I just want people to, if you haven't seen it, I just want people to experience it as cold as possible. But it's fantastic.
Is it on Netflix or
Netflix? Yeah, I'm watching it on Netflix, so I highly recommend that. And then lastly, an anime on Crunchyroll, Fire Force, which is about a team of firefighters, to put it simply. So, but because it's anime, there's an angle. So in this world, people are spontaneously combusting into these fire-like demon things that need to be killed, and then their souls put to rest. So you have this firefighter-like team who do that, and then one of them's a nun who does like the final prayer when they defeat it. So this you've got this kid who, actually no, there's multiple new recruits, but it feels like, at least so far, I've probably seen 5 or 6 episodes. But so this kid who comes in, and he's got special powers, and he's always wanted to join this. So he comes in like, I'm going to join this team, but he's also got a bit of a past because he's known as the devil, because he has this nervous condition where he smiles when he's under pressure, and it comes off as quite devilish. And also he's got like fire powers as well. So yeah, it's the premise is cool, the premise is interesting, and then it seems like there's like a wider, I'm getting conspiracy vibes. It's not a spoiler because I don't know, because I haven't seen it, but I'm getting like, just there's some deeper stuff, some interesting characters, antagonistic characters being added to the mix. But it's not necessarily adult, but it does, like I said, there's some anime I wouldn't necessarily recommend. It does that thing where culturally, some of the way it depicts women in particular, even though it's, generally speaking, it's okay for, it's an all ages thing, but there's certain things culturally, like here, we wouldn't depict women in that way. But it's the anime Japanese culture, I guess. Differences in culture. That's the only thing I'd mention for that. But yeah, it's it's really cool. I'm enjoying it so far. So yeah, so those are the stories that we've been enjoying. Now let's get to our main story discussion. And today we are going to be talking about Superman, which dropped the legacy. We'll get to that in a bit. But the 2025 superhero film from DC Comics, written and directed by James Gunn. It's the first film in the DC universe, DCU. I don't know why they didn't go with that in the beginning, but anyway. And it's a reboot of the Superman film series. It stars David Corenswet alongside Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, Edie Gathegi, Anthony Carrigan, Nathan Fillion, and Isabella Merced. So, spoiler alert, we are going to do all the spoilers that we've got time for in this episode. So, if you haven't seen it, go watch it, come back. I will do a recap of the story. But first, let's get everyone's quick takes and general impressions. And by everyone, I mean, wait, are you Kobe or Shaq? Am I Kobe or Shaq? Who's been? Des, let us know what you think.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Superman, and due to that, I am very, very critical whenever I consume any content around him. So when I left the cinema, so my raw thought was like, this was a solid 6 out of 10. Fun, enjoyed it, wasn't really blown away. And then after I slept on it, I bumped it up to a 7 out of 10. And I guess we'll get into that later. But I just... Yeah, and take it to a pinch of salt because I'm not a filmmaker, but I think superhero movies are very difficult to do.
You mean always difficult to do, or not in this current time?
Oh no, always.
Okay.
Because of the source material, they're static images on a page, and you can fill in the blanks with your imagination, and like all of the, let's call it nonsense, you let slide because it's just images on the page.
Yeah.
And so bringing that into, directors and filmmakers are asking us to imagine,
suspend disbelief,
and then being in a world that's similar to ours, and not being consistent with those rules. It's tough. Like it's a uphill battle. But what I will say is you can definitely tell the filmmakers that really do love the content, and those that just don't care and just picking up a paycheck. There are loads of things in this movie that I was just like, James Gunn has consumed a lot of Superman. And I just want to give him a high five for that because I was like, yeah. And there's another side to it as well. Like, he also had the Star Wars problem, right? So with, oh, God, I don't know what it was, episode 7? Whatever it was. The other one that was just literally a reboot of whatever New Hope was.
789. So 7.
So, yeah. Yeah, right. So I get it because the studio's like, listen, it needs to be familiar for the old people, but it needs to be something new for the new people. Good luck with that. So whoever directed that movie messed it up, but James, he made some very, very smart decisions with this because it's the same thing, right? Like, it needs to be familiar to the old people and it needs to be something new. And I think he did a very, very good at balancing that out. Sorry, that was a long answer saying I liked it.
Okay. Yeah. This whole podcast is about long answers, so you're fine. All right, I'll provide the counterweight. Not because the film was bad, because I actually thought it was pretty good, but I have been known to not be a fan of Superman because I personally find him a boring character because of his mostly perfection. So then it's a challenge to make an interesting story from my mind. We have had a conversation with Victor Luca from Forbidden Planet, who's been on the podcast a few times before, actually. He's usually the one that tries to convince me that Superman is an interesting character, just not done well in a lot of stories and on screen. And we did a live stream episode of the podcast where we did a Superman for All Seasons. We talked about that comic. And yeah, that was a good story. Convinced me that a Superman film can be done well. So as I was watching this, it did make me realize that I might be a Superman hater because I actually enjoyed this. But in my mind, I was like, I need to find some way to downgrade this this film because I have a worldview that I need to maintain and uphold. So let me find the negative. So I might do that in this episode. We'll see. But I did enjoy this. I enjoyed this film. I thought it did have some issues. And interesting, we've done the Fantastic Four episode, came out at similar times. And I think in some ways they've both got not necessarily similar issues, but sort of issues that hold them back in some ways. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, I thought this is good. I think James Gunn did a good job, like you said, Des. I mean, we know from his work on the Suicide Squad and in Marvel with Guardians of the Galaxy that it's clear he cares about the work and he cares about putting something out. Now, whether people like it or not obviously everyone is subjective, but it always comes across that he's trying to do something with care, and I got that in this film. So yeah, I like it. I thought it was a good Superman, because when I first watched the trailer, actually I don't even think I watched the trailer. I generally try and avoid where possible, but
yeah, same.
Yeah, I wasn't convinced with this with this Superman. It just didn't strike me so as Superman. So he got me, convinced me a little bit more. Yeah, I liked a lot about this. So I will say that, and then I'll get to my criticisms in a bit. But yes, I'll do a recap. So this is a story that takes us to Metropolis, where Superman is defeated for the first time by the Hammer of Bavaria, and gets to his Fortress of Solitude with the help of Krypto, which is a hilarious character. They're followed there by the Engineer, an ally of Lex Luthor. Superman's robots use concentrated solar radiation to heal him and comfort Superman with a message from his birth parents, but the message was damaged during the journey over to Earth, so only the first half can be played. Superman returns to Metropolis and is again beaten by the Hammer, who is secretly Luthor's metahuman Ultraman. Later on, he agrees to be interviewed by Lois Lane, his girlfriend and colleague at the Daily Planet, leading to an argument where Lois presses him on the legal and ethical implications of his actions in Bavaria. Another loss. Meanwhile, Luthor unleashes a kaiju on Metropolis to distract while he infiltrates the Fortress of Solitude with Ultraman and the Engineer. They overpower the robots, capture Krypto, and discover the Kryptonian message, the Engineer restoring the damaged portion. Superman rescues civilians while fighting the kaiju with the Justice Gang, made up of Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl. After Mr. Terrific kills the kaiju, Lex Luthor broadcasts a full Kryptonian message in which his parents have actually urged him to conquer Earth to restore the Kryptonian race. So, public opinion turns against Superman, and though Lois reassures him that she still believes he's good, he surrenders himself to the US government, who hand him over to Lex Luthor for detainment inside an artificial pocket universe. Superman is imprisoned with the metahuman Metamorpho, whose son Joey is being used as leverage to force him to transmute one of his hands into kryptonite, rendering Superman powerless. Elsewhere, Lois convinces Mr. Terrific to help find Superman, and they enter the pocket universe, rescuing others. Lois takes Superman to recuperate with his adopted human parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent. Jonathan tells the demoralized Superman that his choices and actions determine who he is, not the message from his birth parents. Luthor's girlfriend, Eve, who is in love with photographer Jimmy, hands over evidence that Luthor is aiding Bavaria in return for territory, so Luthor imprisons her and lures Superman back to Metropolis by opening an unstable portal to the pocket universe. Superman sends Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Metamorpho to stop Bavaria from invading Jaranpur again. In Metropolis, Superman and Mr. Terrific fight the Engineer and Ultraman, who he learns is a clone of himself created by Luthor. With Krypto's help, Superman defeats Ultraman, and at Luthor's headquarters, Mr. Terrific closes the rift. Luthor says he orchestrated the Jaranpur conflict as an excuse to implicate Superman, driven by envy of his public admiration despite being an alien. Superman challenges his ideology, but Luthor remains defiant and is basically beaten up by Krypto. Lois and Jimmy expose Luthor's schemes to the public, clearing Superman's name. Luthor and his associates are arrested, and those trapped in the pocket universe are freed. Lois confesses that she loves Clark too, and as Superman recovers, his cousin, Supergirl, arrives at the fortress drunk to pick up Krypto. The robots comfort Superman with footage of his childhood on Earth with his human parents. The end. So, like I said, James Gunn took control, as he has control of the whole of DCU now. He's the guy in charge. So it's interesting to see where he goes. And this is the first kind of step in that. So it's a long while to get here. So before he joined and took over in 2018, he was actually offered the chance to write and direct a Superman film, but declined just due to his uncertainty about the vision. But then he went to make the Suicide Squad, which was great. And then in 2022, so this is all the behind the scenes business machinations that bring the stuff that we like watch on screen, because it's all in that context. So in 2022, Warner Bros. Discovery was formed through a merger, and then there was a whole plan to restructure DC Entertainment, because obviously comparatively speaking is not seen as doing as well as Marvel, at least at that time. So then
by a long distance.
I didn't want to put my finger on the scale too much, but by a quite considerable distance. So something had to be done. And then in 2022, James Gunn and Peter Safran were appointed as co-chairs and co-CEOs of the newly formed DC Studios. So that's Here's the Keys to the Kingdom. And then they started developing this, what I read was an 8 to 10 year plan for DC Universe and a soft reboot of what was the DC Extended Universe, DC EU. And that even included games, which good luck trying to get games to match up with a film schedule, but that's their problem. And then in 2022, the end of 2022, James Gunn announced that Superman was a priority. So that he announced he's working on a new film focused on a younger version of the character. So Henry Cavill would not return. There's a whole thing about that as well. And then I only found out recently that because it was Superman Legacy, and then they dropped the Legacy part just because I think I read that James Gunn just wanted to not look back, wanted to look forward, which fair enough. And seems to have been doing well by the standards of post-pandemic things, if you aren't the MCU or aren't Disney and Inside Out too. But given all that, and you, Des, being a Superman fan in particular, why do you think it's been so hard to create a Superman that has worked? And overall, I mean, we're going to get into the details, but do you think this works?
Oh man, how long we got? So I think at his core with Superman, the problem is he's invulnerable, isn't he? Like there's very little tangible threat that could think, oh no, is he going to make it? And you can tell, like, DC has struggled with this for years. Like I can't remember how old I was, but we like late mid-90s with the Death of Superman run, Doomsday and stuff. You're just like, what? Like I remember at the time reading it, thinking this is the worst thing I've ever read. And just to say to comic book creators, like, listen, I get it. Like this guy's what, 100 years old, 90 years old, and I get it. That's a long time to come up with fresh stories. But that wasn't it, and that was just terrible. And I think we spoke about this before, but like this is why I kind of fell out of love with comics, because you just can't keep one storyline going for that long. You need to make multiple versions, and then you've got like the Superman I'm reading, you've got the Absolute Superman, then you've got Superman Jonathan Kent, which is his kid, and then you've got like there's too many versions of it to keep up with, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And so, just from a video games perspective, like you need that peril. Like there's no good reason for Superman to get injured or die. You've got to get really creative with kryptonite. And if actually, let me just pause right there. This is a direct message to David Zaslav and James and Peter. If you want someone to make the first good Superman game, then you need to call me.
There we go.
Because it can't be about his physicality and his powers. It just can't. That's just not a fun game for anyone. And then, sorry, it's like bring story-wise back to film, I guess. It just goes down to the again, like the love of the content and the lore. So I thought back to the last couple of movies, and like as you mentioned, the Batman Superman one, you're just like, oh my god! Like all you had to do was read 2 comic books and then watch 2 animated versions and just copy it verbatim, and you've got the film. Like it would have sold millions, but they didn't do that. And then what's the other one I hated? I hated Superman Returns for another couple of reasons. And what was the last one? Man of Steel. Yeah, Man of Steel started really well because the first third of that movie was perfect. Like he's an alien with superpowers, alone. And you could be like, yeah, you would be like a vagabond walking from place to place, struggling to fit in and being frustrated because you have these godlike powers, but if you reveal them, people will shun you and be afraid, right? And you just that was super interesting. There's actually a really good bit of lore. Actually, I loved the bit where he couldn't breathe properly when he was a kid because the air was different, and then they just completely threw that away when Zod and the other lot turned up. You're just like, oh, that would have been super interesting because that's another thing. Like, just and we're not talking about Superman here. We're talking about all of these space things. It's just funny how aliens like look like us and
Yeah.
breathe the same air as us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You
Again, suspension of disbelief.
yeah, right. You just okay, whatever. So that's what I thought was really interesting about the Man of Steel bit. So I think to actually answer your question, why it's so hard is because people don't go deep enough. They should put Superman in situations that are beyond his powers, where he's got to use his intelligence as well. And this film, I like how they investigate his naivety and his like down to earth kindness. I do love that, and that's what's interesting, right? Like Ultraman was a good twist because if you've consumed other parts of DC, you could think, oh, are they going in that direction? So yeah, it was a nice misdirect. But there's nothing interesting about two similarly matched beings beating the living daylights out of each other. There's nothing interesting about that.
Especially now, like we just seen enough of it, like something different would have to be happening. I think because this is where my valid criticism of Superman comes in, is that he's too perfect, or at least the way he's often depicted is just too perfect and inherently too perfect because he can do everything. And I imagine, I don't know the full story of how the timeline of how he was created and what was changed when, but I imagine that was what Kryptonite is for. It's like, we've made this character, he's invulnerable, he's invincible, he has no weakness, we have to invent a weakness, and it's external. And that's the reason I say that, because Kryptonite is external, because not only is he like indestructible, all powerful, he does the right thing. So it's like he's physically all powerful, but internally he's also does the right thing. And I've just been doing a bunch of comic story workshops with young people, and one of the things I would say is like, interesting characters are flawed, so don't miss out on the flaws. And I feel like, in the initial days of making Superman, they missed out on the flaws. So what you then have to do, like you said, you have to, and it becomes a harder challenge, right? You have to make it that's not about the surface level, I'm going to just punch you and to defeat the bad guys, because we know he can do that. So it's got to be about something else. But then that's a challenge, because, the obvious thing is that, okay, we'll put the people you love, we'll put them in danger. But that's the obvious thing. It's got to be about something else, even deeper than that. So I can see it as a challenge to make an interesting film, but it can be done. Like I said, we did a episode on the mini series Superman for All Seasons, which is a really good story. Interestingly, it focused more on Clark Kent than Superman. Perhaps that's telling.
Oh, spoilers! Yeah. Oh no!
Well, I guess that's the premise. Hopefully, that's the premise of it. But so it's just interesting where people go with making a Superman story. But like I said, I think they did something interesting here. Like, as we go to the narrative, where first of all, this isn't an origin story, and same as our conversation on Fantastic Four, because that also skips the origin story, where I feel like we're in a time and space where we can just skip the origin story. We don't need to tell you how he became Superman, how he came to this world and everything. Is that the case? We done with origin stories? We don't need them anymore. We just get to the action.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. So I remember watching Avengers Endgame, and I was talking to a friend about it, and he's like, "Oh, what do you think?" "Oh, I thought it was cool, but it was too long." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Because they cut a whole bunch of scenes and stuff." Because spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, it's a time travel heist movie. So they go back in time doing various things. Yeah, there was a couple of scenes where there was a couple of long payoffs that you're like, okay, cool, it's been 20 movies. I don't mind, that's fine. But some other bits, there's a little bit of expositional stuff. And I explained to a friend, and he's just like, yeah, but you've seen all 19 previous movies, so you know.
No,
and I'm like, yeah, that's fair enough. So to your actual question, like, I loved skipping the origin story, but that's because I've consumed it for 40 years, right? I don't need to see it again. I think, and I'm not friends with Mr. Gunn, but I'm going to call him James. I loved it. It's brilliant. Just because you brought up Fantastic Four and they both did the same thing, because in Superman he does a cut down version of the Star Wars thing, like the scrolling text, right? Like, and I don't like that. I much prefer in-universe stuff.
Sure.
But in Fantastic Four, it made sense because that is how the Fantastic Four were framed within that movie
within the universe.
That made perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Jay's tried, but like there wasn't really a mechanism here for him to do that. The text was fine, and then obviously as soon as you finish reading the text, the first thing you see is Superman crashing into Antarctica, which I thought was brilliant. You can like narratively,
that took me back.
It was good stuff. And sorry, I missed what we talked about.
Origin stories. We done with them.
Oh yeah, origin. Yeah. I think for the tentpole characters, so DC, like the big three, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, arguably. Yeah, I think you get away with it, right? Like, I think those three brands are so big that even if you don't know, you're gonna find out, or someone sitting next to you in the movies could be like, "Yeah, dude, this is what happened."
Just
like, okay, cool, got it. Yeah.
I mean, I take you make a good point about Endgame. I think that's a unique thing, even in the context of comic book films. That there's just not a film like that is essentially the final episode of a season, but the seasons are full film episodes, and so like in and of itself, it doesn't work as a story. I mean, they do tell a story sort of beginning, middle, and end, but it so heavily relies on what's gone before that it just doesn't work itself, which is absolutely fine because that's what it is. So it's not a mistake. That's by design. That's fine. But yeah, you make a good point about even in that, you still have to give some exposition because, so there are people I'm doing a lot of workshops. I can't remember which one. There's a workshop I've been to where kids said the first one they've watched is Endgame or something that they hadn't seen Infinity War, but they'd seen Endgame. I'm like, and it must be an age thing. Like, the age they were at. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm just sort of guessing, but for whatever reason. And there's got to be like adults like that who maybe that's the first one, or you just don't remember because it's a special person who's remembering, that 10 years of that. Two of them are here, and a bunch of them have been on this podcast. So for some people, they're just coming in new. They got other stuff. They don't really care that much. You gotta get everyone to the same point. So that's that. And then again, like you say, those characters are so well known in pop culture, even if you don't consume this stuff as much as we might, it's like it's I feel it's deep in the culture enough that it's safe to say we don't need the origin story. So I do appreciate both Fantastic Four and Superman here just skipping that and just narratively saving space so now you can focus on other things. What it does do is, we talked about Superman, I guess narratively his problem is he's so powerful. How can you stop him? And it starts with him being destroyed almost, and that threw me back because I was not expecting that kind
brilliant.
of. So I feel there's a lot in this film where James Gunn you could see, and I don't necessarily mean this in a bad way, even though I'm the Superman hater here, but you can see he's tried to. He knows this problem exists, and he's tried to do things to essentially humanize and make him less powerful, at least appear that. So that was one of the ways. So our introduction to him is he can be. What was that question in Batman v Superman? Do you bleed? Batman asked him, do you bleed? So he answered that question. Yeah, he does. So okay, cool. There's some relatability along the way. And then and then in terms of like setting the scene, so then we see, Krypto, who I actually didn't know who's going to be in this, so that was a nice touch, bringing that that human element, because I feel, again, James Gunn knowingly, to humanize someone, you have them have a good relationship with a pet. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I got a pet. Well, I've seen pets, got a pet. Cool, we're the same. Me and Superman. So he does that, and we see the Fortress of Solitude. So that early bit is really, I feel, addressing that Superman is so OP. We need to address that, like physically, but also just like narratively give him something that's relatable. So I feel, I felt it was a good start. Yeah, it's interesting. It gripped me.
I just want to pick up a point you said before, like Superman over the ages, right? Like, I mean, one of the reasons why I like him because he was a token. He was a protest, wasn't he? Right. So a particular group of people weren't being treated very well, and this was their fantasy of what they would do, right? If they had these powers, and I think there's a lot of similarity to a lot of different like minority groups around the world that can relate to that. And then you just see the evolution of kind of expectation, right? Because I think, and obviously, I'm not old enough to remember what happened in the 30s, but his powers have evolved. Like originally, he couldn't fly.
Oh, really?
He could just leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Oh, of course. That's
and
right.
What was it? And then all of his powers were referenced by human things, like more powerful locomotive and faster than
speeding bullet. Yeah.
And I don't even think he had X-ray vision or even laser vision initially.
Right.
So I think all these things started to get tacked on, which is still great. You got to sell comics; it's fun. Yeah, so there's that, and then I think he had a bit of a wobble because I can't remember when this was, but there was a period of time where Superman like almost took on that Captain America role.
Can imagine.
And I think that's where a lot of people started to be like, no. Like, sure, he's in America, but I don't think people think he's American. He doesn't stand for that. And it's easy for me to say that, not being American. So I think to everyone who doesn't live there, we're just like, no, that's not quite right. And Metropolis isn't America, even though it is a depiction of it, right? Like, and I think that was where he started to struggle. And there's even a couple of very explicit shots of him, right? Like with the American flag and the eagle and all that stuff. And I know, I forgot, we spoke about it. The guy who did The Dark Knight Returns was it Mark Miller? No.
Frank Miller.
Frank, that's it. Yeah. And so I remember in the animated version of it, they actually they make fun of that, which is fantastic. Bit of a tangent, but yeah, I guess we'll touch on that because, like, the Superman today has evolved, not just his suit, but powers and standing in the world, if you were.
Huh. And it's good you mentioned, because I laugh sometimes when people complain today about changing superheroes and either that's woke if you want to go in that direction, or just like, this is what I remember the superhero as, don't change it. But they are all an evolution of it. And obviously there's a balance, there's certain within a certain remit. But like you said, I don't think I knew that, like Superman, I just assumed he'd always flied. But obviously there's a time where all these phrases actually meant something, leaping tall buildings faster than but and all that. So yeah, you see how it's changed, and how coming to this Superman, how they essentially are a reflection of the time that they were made in, right? What else can they be? So with this Superman in particular, there's I do feel a sense of like introspection in this. So there's a lot, or maybe this is me projecting just where we are now, but so you've got Superman. We then soon see Lex Luthor, who is Lex has always been like the he's the corporate businessman genius gone too far kind of situation. That feels very relevant, even more so today, the way he's going about things.
Yeah.
And then everything takes place in the backdrop of a war, which I can't help noticing the similarities to what's going on in the Middle East, or even like Ukraine and just those situations like that. It feels like there's some, I mean, obviously James Gunn knows stuff, but it's like how much do you let that inform your work? It feels like that is in there as well. And then you've got Superman who's acting in this using his power, and then essentially being questioned. I feel if what this film is about is him being questioned on the use of his power in that. And you've got this Superman, like you said, this was naive, and he's so committed to doing the right thing. Because even when that kaiju comes in, there's that moment where he saves the squirrel. Yeah. So there's a thing in storytelling where I brought this up before, but save the cat moment where you essentially have a character do something that makes them very relatable to the audience and gets the audience on their side, where you could literally have them saving a cat, but it's doing something. In this case, it's saving a squirrel, but it's like, oh, he's a good guy, even though we know Superman, but in the context of this film, oh, he's a good guy, we need to root for him, because even in the heat of this battle, he will take time to save this squirrel. So we get a real clear understanding of this Superman who is wrestling with that power he has. And then we go into like the story, and just I guess we get to see a lot of the supporting cast. So I mentioned Lex Luthor, on the antagonist side, but then I mentioned Lois. We've got a whole team of people at the Daily Planet that we get to meet, and then the Justice Gang. that's a funny name. There's a lot of people in there. Did it feel like there were too many characters? Like, it felt like a lot. It felt like everyone didn't get full time to shine in this. I don't know if that was just me.
Yep, I 100% agree. There were too many, but trying to think here. So the movie, for all intents and purpose, worked. And if I think about the film in reverse and try and take some characters out, I mean, Jimmy if in the context of this movie, like Jimmy, you could get rid of. Perry White, you could get rid of, and oh my god, Cat Grant, like she had zero purpose in that film.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like I'm sorry, okay, like she could disappear. Mr. Terrific drove the plot.
Oh yeah, he was key. To be fair, Jimmy was he had a key role.
Did he though? Like, I think so. For me, that was one of the weakest bit of the films. Right, like the smartest guy on the planet gets undone by his bimbo girlfriend.
Yeah, that was.
It's just like, yeah. I was like, come on, man. Like, I think with all of these films and these IPs that everyone loves, we've all got a very particular thing we would do. And I can't remember that comic series you're talking about, but like for me, I'm very much like that. Like the interesting thing is Clark Kent. Like that's interesting. And how he handles Superman. That's interesting. So for me to throw away Jimmy and that bit of the plot, like so if I was doing this movie, I would have done something else basically. And if we go back to my comparisons with Episode 7 Star Wars. Like, I don't know if this was James or if the studio gave him a note, but like, listen, man, you're making a Superman movie, it has to have XYZ. And if you think Superman, that obviously means Lois, obviously means Jimmy, Perry Cat, whatever. And who's the other guy, the bully?
Oh, I know, I've completely forgotten his name.
Yeah, exactly.
I know who you mean. I know who you mean, but yeah.
But yeah, so what I'm saying is like the film works. So like without the Justice Gang, you don't have that really cool moment where Superman is doing one thing. Like basically, this is how you do a Superman movie: is that you try and force him to be in two places at once, so he has to decide. That's where he starts to get interesting. And then obviously this is the easy way out by having the Justice Gang. Like that was cool because that like it doesn't matter how strong he is. He literally can't be in two places. That's where he gets super interesting. And then, I again, if I was writing this, I would get to a point. It's like, oh man, what's my MacGuffin for this bit? Because I wasn't a massive fan of Metamorpho either, but there's no real other way to get round that. And he's like, all right, cool, no worries. I thought, and this is no offense to anyone who made the film, I thought the baby thing was weak.
Yeah, it was a bit of a
Yeah,
Deus Ex Machina kind of.
yeah, right. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. You do what you gotta do. Crypto again in the Star Wars thing. How do you make it similar but different? Well, no one's done the dog before, and you can start. Yeah, this is fantastic. Like this is genius. Like that's low hanging fruit, and he done it super well. It is star of the show.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. Yeah, you got to squeeze his parents in there. I think.
Yeah, because that's the moral like center of everything, right?
Yeah, and I love his choice of them actually sounding like people from Kansas. Like rather than California. I thought that was a really good decision.
Yeah.
And I think there's something else you mentioned before about the function the parents have, and it's one thing that they messed up in Man of Steel, right?
Oh, is that Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, the whole point mostly in the Superman universe, his dad dies. The only reason his dad dies is to teach Superman that humans are frail and this is the limit of his powers.
Mm.
And then because he literally can't bring people back to life. And in Man of Steel, what was stupid about that is because, well, back then Clark could have very easily, at super speed, saved his dad and the dog without anyone knowing. Like, that didn't teach him anything. Like, Dad, I could quite easily save you. A heart attack, not so much. And to like James's credit, like I would have used that again. Like that's a trope I would keep using. Is maybe not his dad. Maybe I would have gender bended it, made it his mum instead. But like,
yeah,
that's the lesson. It's like we're frail. You're gonna outlast all of us, but you need to be able to deal with this pain.
Deal with that. Yeah.
And lastly, oh my God, Lex Luthor. This is my favorite version of him ever. Because he is super smart. He's got a ginormous ego, and his beef is
and a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, it's just like you used to love me, and now you're loving this
guy.
And I'm like, what? After everything I've done for you, how can you do this to me? And then he's just got this singular session: is get rid of this dude who shouldn't be here. It's all about me. And I think Nicholas Hoult played it perfectly, cheeky when he had to be, angry when he had to be, a little bit of a dick when he had to be. Like, it was just brilliant. Like, that's my favourite bit of the movie, apart from Krypton. But, like, yeah, I thought Lex was just amazing.
Okay. So it sounded like you were saying that there are maybe too many characters, but the ones that were there that did sort of step up and get that spotlight serve the purpose, and maybe some of the sort of background ones that could have been cut out.
Yeah, like
I mean, what I appreciate is again, I'm going to keep referencing these workshops just because it's sort of top of mind, and particularly in the last one, I did appreciate the way that the kids sort of responded, and we had some interesting discussions. Because one of the things I go over is like having characters in there that aren't just cool, just you think they're cool, so I'm going to put them in, but serve a role, like a purpose in this. Particularly if we're talking themes, and I got to speak about that with them. Like I usually say, what's the message or the moral or why the themes or something to get them thinking. And I think what was good here, I was, agree that it felt like there were too many and not everyone got their chance to shine sufficiently, especially when, and we'll get to the Justice Gang, but especially when it's characters that we know about and they're like, they didn't get that much to say here. But the ones I did, I thought that were used well. So you mentioned Lex. I thought Lois here served a really interesting role in terms of like questioning Superman, and it was interesting because they were together in this iteration of the story, so it had that extra layer. So my favorite scene in this was the interview that I love the two characters fixed location discussing ideology in When Done Well. I've got a tip about it later, but when done well, I find that so interesting. And that moment where, so I bring her up because I feel she was used effectively in the context of the story, where she's working with him, they're early stages of dating, but she's a reporter. She has a certain perspective. Superman is Superman. He has a certain perspective, and they clash. So they clash on perspective, ideology, and it's just so interesting because they're in a closed space. Usually, these things take place in a closed space that you can't just run away from, even though he does at the end. But she's like grilling him, and he's getting defensive. And I feel, going back to what we were saying about it's hard to do a Superman story because as Superman, he's near on invulnerable. But this is like very vulnerable because you can't punch this. You can't. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So, and she's making him weak, not with kryptonite, but with challenging his actions, his ideals. I just thought that was a fantastic thing. And then the layer of like they're in a relationship, and because just before it, I think she comes home and he's making. He's making breakfast. Was it breakfast for dinner kind of thing? And she's like, "That's not my favorite. That's your favorite." So there's a little misunderstanding. And then, but he's trying, and then they go into the interview. So I thought that was a fascinating thing and a fascinating use of a character to make Superman vulnerable, done in what I'd say is a better way than. Now I understand it narratively with Metamorpho, which felt more like you could see the gears working on that one. I feel. I don't know if you felt the same in comparison to those two moments to make Superman weak. Like, oh yeah, kryptonite, we know that's got to come in somewhere. But the Lois Lane interview was more interesting to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, so, and that scene, I'm glad you brought it up because it's very polarizing for me because I hated the beginning of it. Like, look, right, no, I'll start with a compliment. I liked so they did it the right way round, right? So if they'd done this scene first and then the scene in the Daily Planet where like she's making fun of him, then that would have been rubbish because then we would have known they were dating and that's the in-joke, which is just not good. So they did that the right way round, which I thought was brilliant because you don't know. Like at that point, you think she is being harsh on him. You're like, oh, even though they played it a bit soft. But then, so it immediately broke down for me because if you've been dating for a bit and you come home, you think someone's in your apartment, like the first thing you do is you say something like you'd be like, "Oh, it's probably Clark," but you try and make it that it's an intruder, and you just like, "Oh, shut up, man! Like, come on, like that's not going to be a thing." And then, I mean, I'm probably a little bit of a prude in my old age, but I didn't understand the whole passionate embrace thing. Like that got too much
so
screen
even before
time.
the argument.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I honestly I just don't know what that scene was for. I don't get it. But to your like right after that when they're doing an interview, like you said, I think it was brilliant. I think again that's what the naivety that I loved because it's like, but I have these powers. And it was obviously the right thing to do. And you just like, and she's like, well, was it? And for me, and like, we've been hypercritical here, but like for me, I would have liked it, or I would have preferred his surprise, not at how she was interviewing him, because he's worked with her and seen her work, so knows what she's like. I would have preferred him to focus on, hey, just a minute, why are you interviewing me like that? And they dropped some bits where he's like, oh no, that was just between us. And that didn't work for me because I think that strayed away from naivety into like incompetency. Like it's like, no, he's a reporter too. Like he knows how to do his job. Like he knows this. So there was one bit that they set up and didn't pay off properly. So she doesn't know where he's from. And I'm like, that's brilliant because that reinforces that they're early in a relationship. And he's like, oh, I'll tell you everything, but I'm not telling you that. And they just mess it up later in the film because, well, you know what happens. And then at the end of it, it turned, it was super weak at the end where she throws away that line, right? She's like, oh, I knew this was a mistake or I knew this wouldn't work or some shit or something. And I was just like, ugh. Like, that was so good. And then you ruined it with that.
But wasn't the whole point, you mean like your issue, because she was talking about like the relationship and not even the relationship, like her place in it. Because her thing is, I don't know if I can make these things work.
Yeah.
And then this is their, I assume their first big fight. And she's like, oh, she goes back to, see, it doesn't work out for me. So I was like, is that's the part you had the issue with?
Yeah, I was just like, oh, come on, man. Like, it still would have like you could. She literally could have said anything else, and he was already annoyed and ready to leave. She could have said anything. So yeah, that was I thought that was weak.
Okay.
But the in the middle, awesome. Like you said, that interview was good. It was really a really good device.
Yeah, so it just made it more compelling, and I think for me, again, and for listeners, it's interesting for me because I'm sort of being introspective of myself, being I say Superman hate. I don't hate Superman. Just never been as interested in like Batman. Batman's fascinating to me, but I can now get in the mind of a hater because what happens is when you're faced with evidence of something that's like pretty good, you go, I'm going to find the negative. I'm going to focus on that. And that's what I'm doing. But I'm glad you're being critical too. So I don't feel as bad for doing that. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that scene. And then, like you said, I thought Lex was good. The only thing with Lex, the thing that annoyed me, I don't know if it's just me thing or the hater thing, because his like mechanism was I'm calling out these moves. So he's like A1, B17, and da da da. That was real. Is that from the comics? Does he do that in the comics? Or because that annoyed me. Like I don't know why. I can't express why, but that annoyed me.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my favorite. I don't recall it in the comics. I mean, I haven't read every issue, but
I get the idea is that I study this man so well that I know his move. I understand. I don't know. It just felt that was weird. That felt weird.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad it wasn't just me. So then, we've talked about some of the different relationships and characters. So one of the things that, where did I get this? So I got a quote from Richard Roper at RogerEbert.com. So they mentioned that this first entry in a new DC universe left me with a cinematic fast food vibe. You enjoy the flavors well enough, but you're left feeling as if you consumed a familiar, empty calorie, relatively happy meal. So then that made me think of like, was there enough weight to this story? Did this feel? I feel there was, but I don't know what you feel as in comparison to other stories and just what we were watching. Was there enough there? Because I think one of the criticisms we had of Fantastic Four was it's quite light. I feel this is maybe on a lighter scale, but there was a bit more weight to it.
I mean, first of all, that is an incredible quote.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, okay. But he's not wrong though, because if I don't want to be turned to like a real critic, but like I'm struggling to see what Superman's growth was through the movie. Like, what's the lesson he learned?
That's a good point.
And it's a little bit around that message from his parents, right? Like, he thought he was there for one thing, but he's not. He's there for something else. But like, it didn't mean anything. He questioned it. Like, so he thought his birth parents were there for good, and he believed that. And he had Earth parents that brought him up well, and that's great. But then retroactively he finds out, like, oh, actually, I'm supposed to be bad. Like, yeah, okay, but as his dad said, like, make your own decision, dude. Like, do whatever. And like, okay, yeah, great, no worries. So for me, there's no growth there, and like that fits this Happy Meal fast food analogy. Because I'm like, okay, cool. Superman won again, unscathed. I think,
except for the beginning.
No. But this what I mean. Like, you're like, oh no, how? Literally, what we said at the top. Air quotes. Oh no, how will he ever survive? And you can like, it's something's gonna happen. It's gonna be fun. At no point did you think he's not gonna get out of this. And I'm not being mean when I say that.
No, it's a good point. It's a good, because you can go different ways when you're with the protagonist character. So you can have the sort of upward positive arc, which I think is most, at least in the West, like most stories. They character has a flaw, they need to overcome to get what they need and or want, and they grow, they achieve that, they get what they want. Or you can have the downward one. I mean, I mentioned Better Call Saul earlier. I feel we're on a downward trend. So character doesn't learn and ends up in a bad place. And we, by extension, the audience, learn from their misgivings. But you can also have the neutral one. I'm just thinking about this at the moment, actually, because the only example that comes to mind, I'm sure there are more, but the Paddington films, where like Paddington is just he's just a nice character, and it's the effect he has on other people, or even does this work? I'm gonna find a way to squeeze God of War in here because it's the best game ever. But in God of War Ragnarok, so Kratos has done growth in the first one,
Yes.
and I feel, at least my perspective in Ragnarok, he's kind of the same. So he doesn't necessarily. There are. I don't want to get into spoilers in that, even though we could do an episode on that. He has to learn thing, but it's mostly about other people. So like, he's learned a lesson, and then Ragnarok's like other people, him having that lesson tested through other people who haven't learned the lesson in various ways. So he's kind of stable in a sense, and I feel that's a similar thing here, where Superman's kind of stable. I don't know if it's intentional or not. I feel in the other examples I've mentioned it's intentional. I'm not sure if it's intentional here, but Superman, like you say, is kind of the same. But like,
yeah,
does anyone learn? Does anyone learn in this? Does anyone grow, change?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I'm like,
wait, so what is this about then?
Yeah, it's exactly right. Like, and like this, I'm glad you brought this quote up because like it's the first time I'm hearing this, and like now it's just permeating through my brain. I'm like, actually, yeah, you're right. The more I think about it,
yeah, me too.
No one, yeah, like because. I mean, this is why Lex is such a good villain, is because he thinks he's right. So
yeah,
he doesn't learn anything. And they try with Superman's speech at the end about like, oh, I guess she was arrested. He's like, no, bro, but you're not. Like, you can knock buildings down. And again, and I know I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like if it was me, I would have led more into the argument with him and Lois about how strong he is and he can't just do what he wants and why that's scary, even if he's right. Like, that growth would have been good, right? He can't, he can, but doesn't mean he should.
He should,
And I think that would have been a more interesting arc for me. Yeah, and I'm just trying, Lois learned, again, maybe I do love this guy because he almost died. I'm like, hey, get all the way out of town of this. That's not interesting at all. I'm trying to think. You know what? This pains me to say it. If I squint really hard, you could argue that Guy Gardner had a little bit of growth. Like a millimeter of growth.
That's a hard to reach. But I kind of, I mean, by the end he's kind of, okay, maybe it's not just about me with the team and we're here to help the people who I might have looked down on just a second ago.
But like it's there because Lois goes to him for help. He's like, nope. And then when the wars happen, he's like, "Oh, actually, no. Okay, we'll help." And he delivers arguably the best line in the film. And you're just like, "Okay, yeah." Anyway, So back to your original question with the vacuous Happy Meal. I agree with that sentiment, but I also don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say because I'm just you made me think about this like on the fly where does anyone learn anything and does it matter? My initial read of it is they did try for character arcs and Clark being one of them, but maybe just didn't hit as well. I don't think it was intentionally we're going to make him the neutral character arc, but like you said, it was still an entertaining film. I think that's fine. And even when we spoke about Fantastic Four, it's like this is quite a safe film, but that's fine because you have two previous absolute well, particularly the 2015 one, just absolute tragedy of a film. So that it had to just work. So I get that, and that kind of sounds like, I don't know, accepting lower standards. Maybe it is. Have we got to that point where we're just accepting lower standards? I don't know, but it was an entertaining film. You know, people are listening to this maybe and thinking that we didn't like it. I enjoyed it. My inner hater is enjoying the criticism of it, but I did enjoy it. Just certain things that you'd like to see improved upon for what, you know, this 8 to 10 year plan in there. And especially if they're not doing the origin story and they're skipping that, they can really get to like the meat of these issues and bring them out. So no, I agree. I feel that. So I think what was cool to see, I mean, we talked about like the plot twist, which essentially Clark's not who he thought, or he's not there for what he thought he was there for, questioning his identity. That was interesting. So it's like James Gunn saying, because before it's like just Superman, all powerful, no questions asked kind of thing. Whereas here it's like, what does it mean to be a hero when we're faced with this being, I'm not who I thought I was, people don't like me now, that kind of situation. And then I mentioned this earlier about the whole backdrop to this is there's a war between two countries whose name escaped me, even though I read it out earlier, that are, I feel like, a proxy for the just general like wars that are going on here. But then you also have things like Lex Luthor being the sort of private corporate entity, essentially using extraordinary rendition, abusing his corporate power, and then dragging the US into a war to get what he wants. So yeah, that's that feels familiar in a sense, and it did make me think about, you know, it's not new for like media to comment on things like current events and things like where we are now, particularly with superhero films. How much should we expect them to comment? Because I feel we're in a time where when they do or when they acknowledge things, it's like you're immediately in the woke box, whatever that means.
Yep.
To people. And I've seen that criticism of this film because he's an alien, which I'm sure has been there since the beginning, unless I'm mistaken. He's not from those shores. He's an alien, and you've got this war situation. So in terms of like the commentary going on here, were you okay with that? Like, what did you feel about that part of the story?
I believe that storytellers have a license to tell the story they want to tell. How they want to tell it, because I don't really engage in it in real life, and I kind of go to entertainment to escape real life. I don't really like it. I think, and I'm not just talking about Superman here, but I think some filmmakers can be lazy with the depictions of these things. Like, I mean, if I criticize video games where I'm from, it's always the Russians. Which is tired, right? Like it's really, really tired. So seeing something like this in a film and trying to comment on real world parallels, I think it's dangerous with films because they age very quickly. So if, you watch this in X years' time, you're like, okay, like sure. And also, fortunately, I've not been in a place where I'm the subject of these scenes, right? But I can imagine it's not. If I was one of those people watching this, I'd be like, oh, it's hard to tell if they're trivializing it because there's some sort of like parody-based characters, like the boss of the fictitious country. You're just like, oh, really?
That was a bit much. It's funny, but it felt out of place in a way.
I didn't enjoy that
too
at all.
comical.
Yeah. So just stuff like that. Like, my personal bias, I don't really like that. But I think my preference is just like kind of like Easter eggy things, right? Like little nods and references rather than on the nose. Like, oh look, this is generic brown country X. When we're really saying it's this specific country. Like, yeah, of course you are. Like, yeah.
No, I get that, and I feel that, and it's a difficult one because I don't mind, and I don't know because I haven't. In fact, as I'm asking a question, I haven't necessarily verbalized an answer myself, but I don't mind it. But sometimes done well and done intentionally and in the right way, whatever the right way is, it can work, and it's. Because that's how we as people examine the world and everything. We put it in stories and we examine it, but it doesn't need to be in everything. And as you were talking, the example that came to mind, the later season of The Boys,
Yep.
which I felt, I mean, The Boys has always had that political commentary, but I feel in the later season it was a bit on the nose, even though I don't personally feel called out by it.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with friends who do, and I'm like, yeah, I can understand it because it is quite on the nose. Like you can go too far with it to a point where, and I think actually maybe this is the thing, the point where there's a point that's too far where you're taken out of the story and
Okay.
you're now thinking about the thing it's commentating on rather than thinking about it through the story. So you mentioned that the leader of the country in this, that for me took me out of the story because I'm now thinking how silly this guy is. Whereas you could have made some kind of commentary within the story, and I'm now thinking about the character or the situation in the story. And then once the story's finished, I'm like, oh, that meant da da da. So a good example, what I personally would say, a good example outside of superheroes is Sinners, where there's a commentary there. Yeah, there's a commentary there on culture, black culture, the what's the word, the appropriation, that's the word, of culture, where it's there, but there's no point where it's taken out of the film. I can enjoy the film, and then afterwards I can think about, oh, this is about that, let me read about this, what the deeper meaning there. I like that, but I could enjoy the film. Whereas there's a bad way to do it, and I felt, even though I still enjoyed the last season of The Boys, but I could feel myself being taken out. Oh, this is like that, this is like that, they are talking about that. So there's a balance. It's a difficult one. So I feel there's some of that, but I definitely take your point as well. I mean, and then in terms of like, we've spoken about some of the characters. The one character I wanted to make sure we do mention is Mr. Terrific, because as advertised, he was terrific. I thought he was great. I think like Lois, in terms of like the theme and her role there, I thought was great. But just as a character, Mr. Terrific, I thought he was the best character. Maybe the dog as well, but Mr. Terrific was the best human character, I would say. So he basically gets his own like B story and just runs with it. And he's so well played. The scenes he's in are fantastic. Or terrific. Let me use stick on theme. But well, I don't know, was like what you thought about him, or was there any other character that you felt like you resonated with a lot?
I'll say more about him, but characters. I liked the guy Gardner Green Lantern. Like, he's an
I had an issue with him. I like what he does. I liked, because I know he's supposed to be that. Yeah. So don't get me wrong. No, he's annoying, and like you say, but then he's that played
perfect.
It well. He played it well.
Yeah, exactly. And you say, all right, cool, no worries. And then Mr. Terrific. So again, the toughest thing for me is I've already seen a lot of good Superman content. Like the Justice League cartoons had some very, very, very good storylines, and Mr. Terrific in there is also very, very good. And you just say, okay. And so like that warps some of my judgment, because I really, really like that one. So this one is not the one that I would do, right? Like, it's kind of like what you were saying before. But I really enjoyed him, and this is I want to pick up the thing you said earlier about Lois Lane. If I would love to speak to James about this, because there were some scenes that I would have taken her out of, and it would have meant
her being Lois.
Like Lois, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're just like, yeah, man, if we did that, then she'd have 10 minutes of screen time in a 2-hour movie. I'd love to talk to him about it, because one of the best scenes in the film where Mr. Terrific is fighting people, I loved the decision to do that from her perspective, but it should have been from her first-person perspective and not her in the scene, right? She should be watching him do all this cool stuff, not we're looking at him doing this cool stuff over her shoulder, right? Yeah, I thought that was super weird. But then I don't know how much she's getting paid, but like, she's third on the title card, so she's not cheap. If you're doing that and she's in the film 10 minutes,
she got to be in. Yeah.
Someone's going to moan about it, right? And I thought I had a really different example from a different film, but also like there's some places where like you said, well, why? Like when they go to the pocket universe, it's like, hey, listen, like you can literally just wait outside or sit in the car. Like I don't need you're not helping me. Yeah,
They can't fit.
right.
Yeah.
It's just and you're just like, okay, you got to let the film happen.
Yeah, it was a bit like Lois, because Lois goes from being quite strong in terms of her place in the narrative and challenging Superman to sort of like the hanger on a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah. And I just like, all right, okay, and but sorry to your original point, like, yeah, Mr. Terrific was really, really terrific. I loved the costume, like his jacket was like
Yeah,
the coolest thing I've ever seen.
he felt like a throwback.
Yeah, right. And I think the makeup was cool as well. Like I was interested in how they were going to do that, but yeah, it comes off on the screen, and obviously I forgot his name, the actor. This is like retribution, right, for X-Men. You know, when he was Darwin and like completely.
He's the one that got killed. You know,
Yeah.
just quick tangent because I have to rant about this anytime. That was I don't want to play the black card, but that was one of those because I've heard, you know, there's a cliche in horror, the black character is the one that gets killed off. But in that scene, it genuinely annoys me because there was no reason for him to die in that scene, and the scene was done. And then they came back and then they killed him off. And I know we're talking about films, it's not real, all actors been paid. But just in terms of depiction in the media, that frustrated me because it's completely unnecessary. It's all fed into that
and
stereotype.
It's like the literal opposite of his powers.
Yeah.
Like he's supposed to be able to adapt to anything. Like dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, that genuinely frustrated me.
Yeah.
So Retribution.
So yeah, and I thought they handled his orbs very well. His ship, sure.
Again, that felt like a throwback as well, a bit.
And going back, going back to the Lois comment. Like again, like you know when they're leaving the planet, and that's like the scene sets it up before it even happens, and you're just like, oh, please don't do it, please don't do it. The whole I don't know how to drive this thing. We're going to fall off a skyscraper and then magically fly after. I'm just like, shut up, man. Like, don't. That's what that lost a whole point out of my 10 scale, like just on that one scene.
Right. Yeah. Again, it was like there were some things done well, and then there was the things a bit like just sort of questionable. And yeah, I kind of get that a bit like cliched in that sense. So yeah. So then, with we talked about the themes and the characters placed in those themes. So we've seen Superman as the almost like the immigrant journey, right? He's not from here, he's an alien, he's settled in the US, viewed skeptically. I mean, I did like in terms of like what the film was about, there's that aspect of, and I always enjoy this with certain superheroes, is that power and who has the power and the fear from those in power, i.e. the government. Because you get this in Marvel as well, other places where like these beings have so much power. Yeah, they're on our side, but what if they don't? what if they? And what do we do? I do enjoy that question. I guess it was kind of explored because he did. When Lex turned the world against him, he did give himself up, and then there was that they basically send him to a black site and for Lex to do whatever. And it's we've got him in our control. But I do enjoy that conversation. What do we do with these beings that if they want, they can do whatever they want and we're powerless? But we're the government and we need to have all the power and control. So I like seeing that. And then, related to that question of the legal and ethical implications of power. And I go back to the scene with Lois and Clark with the interview is like challenging that, that role and his use of that unilateral power. That's cool. And then the other theme I sort of picked up and resonated with was this idea of like strength is in the compassionate heart. And also I do like that about Superman, and this is where his parents come into it with that, are they Midwestern? Is it Midwestern? I'm not from America, I don't know. It's not South. It's like, is it Midwestern? I'm not sure. But that old folksy kind of advice they give him about choices and reminding him it's not, this is someone who can do anything really, but it's about that internal, that the power comes from our choices, and that's what makes us heroes. I also like that as well. I don't know if there was anything that you resonated with in particular in this particular story, Superman.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, I touched on before. Like, I mean, we're doing tangents all night, so I'll keep going. But when you, again, for me, when you look at Superman, like for me, Clark Kent's the interesting thing. But then the other interesting thing is what if he goes bad, and
Yes,
like I mean, that's literally what The Boys is.
Boys is Invincible.
Yeah, Invincible does it, and this is all popular stories for that exact reason. You're just like, oh
It's an
my
interesting
god,
question.
yeah, because we wouldn't do anything because like he's
Yeah,
literally
what could you do? Yeah.
and then DC did it with Red Sun, which was basically a story where he landed on Earth 12 hours earlier, so he landed in Russia instead of the US.
Oh yeah.
It's a fantastic story. He does again, like it's what we're picking at here. He does everything that he thinks is right, which is ruled by his omniscient power, right? But in a air quotes nice way, like he thinks he's doing the best for the people, and logically it is. But like he's removing essentially free will, right? Which and there's loads of story about that, right? It's just like all the AI and iRobot and the Matrix, all that stuff. Like that. Well, look, you can't be trusted to do stuff yourself, so we'll do it for you, and everything's fine. These are the interesting bits, and I just would have loved, like again, we were talking about the character arc. If that original interview, she's pushing him, and like at that point, he's again, she doesn't deliver that line, sort of thing, but like he questions, like, oh, god damn it, okay, maybe I don't fit in with these people, and they pull at that thread where like obviously the war's escalating, and he's deciding like actually no, let's get rid of all the tax, all that stuff, and I think it would be really interesting if he made a mistake, right? So I loved the lines in the interview where he's just like, oh, no one got hurt, and I thought they were going to go in this direction when he said there were no casualties and no one got significantly hurt. And I was like, ooh, that means something from someone with infinite power. They lost an arm or a leg, or it just got broken, or so. You just like, dude, what does significantly mean in your context?
Yeah.
I absolutely would have loved that. And then you see flashes, right? Like he's like, no, I am right, and I'm going to do it this way because no one can tell me otherwise. And that's that grey line where it's just like, ooh, dude, we can't rein you in. You need to rein yourself in. Yeah. And like, yeah, that would have been super interesting if you could do that. But the fact that literally no one of significance died, like apart from the newsstand guy.
Oh yeah, that was that escalated.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
I loved Lex's reaction to that, but yeah, that did feel a little bit out of place to me. I was just like, okay.
And it's all like tone, right? So by that point, or at least I got the tone that no one's going to die like that, like not like. And then all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, are we in this kind of film?
But so to your point though, like that would be the inciting incident, right? That's where Superman's like, you know what? Okay, like I think you've gone too far now, and I'm going to do something about it. Obviously, Metamorpho aside, but again, I'm a bit biased on that because again, that was a really good storyline in the Justice League where Superman he just has a last straw and takes matters into his own hands, and then it's a really good 2-episode thing. But yeah, that was it. Sorry, that was my point.
Yeah, no, as you're talking as well, I'm reminded of a point that Jed Shepard, who was our guest for Fantastic Four, made. I think Tazziii agreed with the point that he felt they put too much in Fantastic Four. They tried to cover too much. I didn't necessarily agree with him, but I sort of saw where he was coming from, especially as someone who, because he came from, like, that's his favorite in the comics, his favorite character, so he can see what might have got 5 minutes in the film was like a whole thing that could have been in it. So I understand that. I would actually copy and paste the argument and put that in Superman, because I feel in this, 9 or 2 hour film, as we're both like talking, I feel they maybe tried to put too much in this, both character-wise and like narratively, where, because what you're saying, there could have been some interesting. I'm reminded of The Batman, which too is great. That's a very long film, so they got a lot. But there was a more coherent examination of certain themes, and it took them to further than here. So if we're keeping in DC, and that wasn't the case yet. Now with the DCU, they're doing the MCU thing, which is generally speaking, family friendly. Like The Batman isn't a family film, so you can do different things. But I just wonder, and I'll put this to Marvel as well. Just maybe there's a bit further we can go with some of these storylines and themes that still makes it acceptable for a family audience. Because I understand there's certain things you can and can't do, or perceived to not be able to do, or not, or not do when you put that family label on it. But yeah, it felt like they started things that maybe, like I say, they tried to do too much in this film. That's now the impression I'm getting as we talk about it.
And again, just to give James credit, like the problem is he's got to make a film in a world that is already bored of superhero films.
Yeah.
Like, he needs to do that because of the last 10 years, right? Like, that's a very difficult space to come into. And again, I think he's gone sort of like the right way around it. There wasn't too many, strong guy hits strong guy bits. But, the cinema going audience is already bored.
Yeah.
And okay, dude, like what you got for us that's going to be that's going to help. And I think again, this is a solid effort, and I think arguably if we go back 10 years, this would be like an 8 out of 10. But
yeah, that's the
that's what I mean,
thing, right?
Yeah, this is the problem, and
problem with expectations. We've seen too much.
Yeah.
I even wonder if we're the problem, or even Marvel are the problem because they did so well, and now it's like this is our standard now. It has to be Endgame or bust. Yeah. So yeah, it's a tough one.
But here's the thing. So on top of all that, like DC are looking at that thinking we have the roster to make a good pantheon of movies like them.
Yeah.
But the problem is Marvel have sucked out all the oxygen, right? So. I think the patience for that is not there anymore. I mean, it's definitely not with me. No. And I love this stuff. I think because Marvel's a gamble too, right? Like if Iron Man didn't work, that they wouldn't be around anymore. So so where they had the time to do all these individual movies and set things up, and like give the lead or the title character enough space to breathe. I think, the DCU needs to take some shortcuts.
Oh, you think they do need to take some shortcuts?
Yeah, they do. They can't take.
No, they can't take 10 years.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So that means, the first couple of films are going to have enough, too many characters. I think they're testing which ones are going to work. I mean, personally speaking, Green Lantern has got enough content to make their own movie, but I think just Guy on his own, I don't think he's strong enough. I mean, Nathan Fillion is great, but I don't think Guy Gardner, the character, can carry his own film.
No, the way depicted is too two-dimensional. Is of a character.
Hawk Girl just isn't interesting.
Barely in it, yeah.
And Mr. Terrific. I think people will enjoy a Mr. Terrific film, but Mr. Terrific isn't a. I don't think he's a lead character. Like he's got his own comic, but I think maybe his format fits a TV show, right, rather than a film. I think
he feels like a foil character.
Yeah. So sorry. I'm just saying, like they're in a tricky spot, and I think they've navigated it well. But I don't think the next couple of movies they do, I don't think they're going to have this many characters. I think what? How many is it? 3, 4. It's almost 10. It's over 10.
Yeah, it's fair few. Fair few now. So then, because you make a good point in terms of like the audience, because there's an underlying criticism of like comic book films, but also like the comparison. So people saying, "Oh, why don't Marvel do what they did?" And what they did is spend 10 years laying these characters, building up, and it was great. It was never before seen, at least to that that scale, that coherence, and not to say every film there was great. And obviously they've struggled. Pandemic, writer strike in there has impacted things, and just I would say that corporate greed aspect of, oh, this thing we did was successful. Let's not do the underlying thing that got us there. Let's do the surface level thing and just repeat that, which is frustrating. It happens, but then we, the audience, have our expectations have changed, and you're right. DC can't do that because the audience won't allow them to do that 10-year thing. We're already bored, and even like you say, like we're on the extreme side, we'll watch a lot of these. But even me, like my confidence was really shaken with the new Captain America, because I thought that was just an empty film, and I wanted it to work, but that was just like an empty film. Anyway, I've spoken about that, but. I thought Thunderbolts was great. I actually thought Thunderbolts was probably slightly better than Fantastic Four, but Fantastic Four was good. So, and it's just going to have to do it in a different way, but we also have to give them that space to try a new format and stop going there. This is an end game, it's a flop kind of thing that people are so want to do.
Yeah, 100%. But I'll tell you now, there's one thing I'm afraid of. They've said that Peacemaker season 2.
I haven't seen that, but I do like John Cena.
Yeah, and that continues from Superman. I'm like, oh, dude, like...
Oh, because everything's got intertwined now.
Yeah, because this is where Marvel messed up, right? Like, they're just like, oh, no. Like, if you want to know what's going on in this movie, you need to watch these 2 film series. Well, like, no, man, like, I'm not going to do that. And, I'll go so far as to say that I trust James. He obviously knows what he's doing. Like, I'm not going to insult him, but I'm just worried about that. Like, I think personally, I love transmedia content. Like, I love crossing the streams, but I think it is a monumental ask, and I think it's only super fans that do that. I think you've got people that watch TV for a certain reason, people that go to cinema for a certain reason, people play video games for a certain reason, and I think they're the majority groups. Yeah, I love both of these Marvel and DC franchises. But like the last 3 or 4 Disney Plus shows, you just like, these are generally trash. When I catch up with a film, I'm like, oh, why are you referencing that? Like, no one cares about
that's too far. I'm not going to watch the And the crazy thing of Captain America is referencing things from Incredible Hulk before the MCU. That was crazy to me. That was actually insane that you would have these emotional beats that relied on me remembering this film that saw 20 years ago now. So it wasn't even that great. It wasn't even made it. Yeah. That was mad. So there is definitely a limit to how far film audiences will go.
And just because you brought it up, I want to say. Incredible Hulk. No, I only made that mistake. Captain America 4.
Incredible Hulk 2.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's just one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like even the narrative, right? Like people just don't talk like that. So do you remember the scene near the beginning where the Ross in his office and his assistant comes up to you and goes, "Oh, hi, President Ross, it's your daughter Betty on the phone, blah, blah, blah." You're just like, listen, in this universe, you and I both know who that is.
Who that is. You don't need to...
just tell me my daughter's on the phone. Yeah, it's just so much expositional rubbish. And you're just like, oh my God, like, just... Sorry.
So, I'm there. Yeah, I'm there with you. But all right. So for this, and the last thing is, then are you excited for DCU? Are you excited for more to come from Superman from the extended universe here? Well, I guess I shouldn't say extended universe. It's just the DC universe.
Yeah, I yes, but like my idea of it, right? So. As we alluded to earlier, like there's some very, very good existing content you can pull from that people in this universe won't necessarily have seen. Like, there are people that like watching superhero movies, but they will not watch the cartoon series. Mm-hmm. So I think you can easily lift from them and it translate very, very well. And I always thought DC did a better job of being more grounded in reality than Marvel, just in general. So what's going on? They're doing Lanterns. The problem with Lanterns is it's going to be like a really expensive visual effects fest.
It would have
Which,
to be.
you know, I'm not a massive fan of. Although, like when you're talking about VFX, if you're imagining like holographic things, you're like, yeah, okay, that's what you could probably get away with. It's you know, if they want to start bringing people back like King Shark and all that stuff, where it just looks terrible. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. As for Superman, I don't know what Superman 2 would be. I generally don't. I think they're probably better off trying to do some sort of team up.
Yeah, I was going to say you got to put someone else in there.
Yeah, like I'd be very interested to see a Superman and Batman. There's a couple of really good stories you could do with that. I'm not really interested in like Jonathan Kent Superman. I'm not interested in that. I can't remember which comic book it was. I think it was All Star Superman actually, where that I'm not going to say canon, but like in that book, they were just like, no, human and Kryptonian DNA can't mix, and they're trying to figure out how to do it. That was a very, very interesting thread, and I'd love them to go that way. I would love them to. A really interesting storyline would be to bring Amanda Waller back and do something either around. Well, you couldn't do Task Force X yet, which is kind of what ripped off Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad ripped off. You couldn't really do that yet because you need the other DC characters like Batman and stuff to do that. But you could do like the Project Cadmus run, which is similar to what they've done already with Ultraman. So Project Cadmus is where they clone Superboy.
Right.
That would be interesting, I think, and you could do a couple of good stories with that. So yeah, that's what I'm interested in. And also, hopefully, like if he wants to make a good Flash movie, that would be really awesome.
I'd be up for that. A good Flash movie, yeah.
Yeah, because
be up for that.
Just kind of like what I was referencing before. Like, so with the Flash, they took one of the best stories from comics and just messed it up.
Like a key moment in the comics. Okay, I mean, yeah, James Gunn. I feel if anyone's going to make it work, you wouldn't necessarily bet against him. But then the environment's different, though. The audience is different. But I like you. I feel we definitely haven't tapped all the comic stories. So there's still a lot of good in there. It's just whether we can. I say we, like I'm in the room with the team, but whether the filmmakers can pull that out. And I guess it's going to have to be in a different way than was done in the previous 20 years. Now, but they can do it. I believe in you, Hollywood. There you go. And I like seeing that. I like seeing good superhero films done well. I feel there doesn't need to be a fatigue. We don't say there's a comedy fatigue. We don't say there's a drama fatigue. You just make an interesting story. So that says they're not making enough interesting stories. So there you go. There's a solution. Make interesting stories. So, but I feel similar to Fantastic Four. Here, Superman. It's a decent first step, and hopefully they build on it. So I think that's our collective takeaway for as glowing as that report.
I don't trust Hollywood, but I do trust James Gunn.
Okay, there we go. In Gunn we trust. So there you go. So that's our discussion on Superman and everything DCU, MCU, all of that. We've had back-to-back comic book films. So I feel just that discussion about where we are with them is worth having. So let us know what you think. Are you pro superhero films? Have you checked out this episode? Maybe it's like they saw Superman and like done with that. But let us know anyway. And then before we wrap, we'll get to our storytelling tip. Each time we do a deep dive on the podcast, I like to pull out a storytelling tip for others to consider when making their stories. So this is a consideration from someone who also creates stories and likes to learn from the techniques or mistakes of others. And for today's episode, I wanted to discuss getting one-on-one scenes right. Even with a story that is packed with intense action sequences, it can actually be the quiet moments that stand out, at least for me. Storytelling can still thrive in simplicity when we get down to raw character, tension, and theme. And one of the most effective methods is the extended dialogue scene between two characters in a fixed location. On the surface, it can appear static, two people talking in a room, in a car, or at a table, yet across mediums, it's a technique that has produced some of the most memorable moments in story. When we constrain movement and limit characters, we get to focus on things like dialogue, subtext, pacing, and emotional escalation. And at the heart of these moments is tension, both spoken and unspoken. The most memorable two-character exchanges typically rely on these three mechanics: conflict and contrast, so the characters must want different things or see the world differently, and the dialogue becomes where those differences play out. Subtext and silence, so what is not said often carries more weight than the words themselves. Pauses, hesitations, and evasions can all heighten the drama. And rhythm and escalation. A well-constructed scene builds like a piece of music. It may start casual, then gradually deepen, sharpen, or even explode into revelation. And one of my favorite moments from this Superman film is a scene, as I mentioned before, where Lois interviews Clark Kent. It's set in a single apartment room. The conversation explores Superman's controversial involvement in the Bravia-Jaranpur conflict. The room doesn't change. There are only ever two characters, and neither of them is in a cape and a suit. It's unchanging, yet the stakes ripple outwards to geopolitics and morality. And the greatness of the scene is about clashing perspectives, which are heightened by two people who may see the world differently and are in the early stages of a romantic relationship. So Lois presses with journalistic skepticism, demanding accountability as she questions the role of power and unilateral action. Clark responds with both vulnerability and conviction, struggling to reconcile power with responsibility. What could have been an uninteresting exposition becomes a duel of ideals within a context we are emotionally invested in. The fixed end heightens intensity. The audience cannot escape, just as the characters cannot either, until Clark blows up and does actually escape. But it shows how limiting a scene spatially can actually expand it thematically, because there's nothing else for us to be distracted with but the dialogue and reaction to this moral exploration. And there are countless examples of this being done well in other stories, but two of my favorites come from Quentin Tarantino. So the first is Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite films, and the diner opening scene with Pumpkin and Honey Bunny that shows the potential for energy and unpredictability. So we see this mundane discussion, and I'm never quite sure what is happening or why, but we know there's something in it until it suddenly spirals into a violent declaration, with the two that we've been watching are actually revealed to be violent criminals. And Inglourious Basterds in 2009, this is another opening, and an infamous one, where we see the SS Colonel Hans Lander at a local farmhouse, and it's a classic example of the use of the extended dialogue scene for suspense. So we're in a fixed rural kitchen over milk and small talk, but there's just layers of menace slowly accumulating because of the context. That is the Jewish family hiding in the floorboards as this menacing SS Colonel sits right above them. The stillness of it all amplifies the dread, because we know the consequences of what could happen if they are discovered. So here are 4 tips to consider when executing the extended dialogue scene between two characters. Number 1 is the scene is about conflict, not the setting. So the room alone is not compelling. It's the clashing desires within it that keep us hooked. So you need a clear idea, not only the character motives in the moment, but what they believe as people and how each threatens the other's worldview. So the diner in Pulp Fiction is completely meaningless until we learn the pair we're watching are about to rob it. What is interesting up until that point is their relationship dynamic and the somewhat mystery around who they are and why we're watching them. Number 2, use silence as subtext. It's all about the subtext, the things not being said. Don't just make it a question and answer session. Allow characters to dodge, evade, or pause in their responses, because what goes unsaid often carries the deepest meaning. Number 3, shape the conversation as drama. So think in beats, not monologues. You want to escalate the tension through shifts in tone, revelation, or emotional intensity. The scene in Superman means so much because we know the pair are dating, and at least one of them is unsure about the relationship. That makes the debate even more dramatic because the outcome will surely impact the relationship. And number 4, be intentional about the setting and use it symbolically. So circling back to my first tip, the location doesn't mean much on its own, but it can add thematic weight for your story and the outcome of the back and forth. But it does require you to be intentional about what is being debated and why, and what setting would work well with that. So I really think these scenes are fascinating when done well. They can demonstrate how you can do a lot with a little, how you can strip stories down to their essence, the people, the words, and the conflict between them to create intense and memorable moments. So that is the tip for this episode. So if you're creating your own story, let us know what you think about this week's storytelling tip. You can jump in our Discord or email us studio77@myamatter.com. That is a tip for this episode. This is usually where I ask Tazziii to check in with guests, but I'll pick that up. So Tazzii's not here. Tazziii is undisclosed location, so I will literally undisclosed location. But yeah, Des, why don't you let us know what you're up to, where people can find out about you and your work?
Cool. All right. So I am working on a game for the Playdate. And if you don't know what that is a small console that plays games made by a company called Panic. The game's called Kidcopter. Should be out this side of Christmas. And you can follow me on Itch if you want to find out about that. And so I'm just Kid Desimo on Itch, and I'm pretty much Kid Desimo everywhere. Blue Sky, Instagram, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, I might find you around Gamescom because you are in Germany, and you'll be roaming the halls like I will at some point.
Yeah, I've a ridiculously early train tomorrow.
There you go. All right, we'll wrap up and send you on your way. Des is the only, other than Superman, Des is the only one I've seen can travel back from Germany to London in that kind of time frame. So, but yeah, we'll let you go. But yeah, no, thank you, Des, for joining us or joining me. We did the Kobe Shaq thing. I feel we outscored the team. I feel we got the championship in this. But thank you, people, for listening as well. If you like this episode, subscribe. We just talked about Fantastic Four. We did a lot of comic book film talk as well. So if you like that, or animation, anime, we do a bunch of different things, video games. So yeah, give us a 5-star rating, review, subscribe. That all helps us reach new listeners and fans of story discussions. We're story creators ourselves. We have manga. That's what we make. That's what we do. Our titles are available, myamatter.com, where you can check out the latest one, Origins Against All Odds. You can join our Discord. We've got some plans in the works there, but you can chat with us in between episodes as well, and be part of the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign. We've got events to come. We'll be at Comic-Con. We are doing the panel or the round table at Comic-Con. Unfortunately, this year it won't be a separate event, but we've got other events, virtual and in person, still to come for 2025, and then we'll do it all again for 2026. And as for the podcast, we release new episodes on Thursdays, and that includes video game discussions, interviews with creative professionals and practitioners, as well as deep dives into stories across pop culture. You can always give us a shout directly. Our email address is studio77@myamatter.com. And our website with links to subscribe is myamatter.com/storyxstory. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, stay safe. And remember, not to brag, but if it was us, this would have been a much better film. Just saying. Take care, everyone.